Today I want to fuse my love for comics with my love for vintage ephemera, which is things that exist or are used or enjoyed for a short time, by definition. The best examples of ephemera are birthday cards, other greeting cards, old packaging, anything like that, so something that was made to be disposed of. As you can see, these are all little pieces of ephemera from my collection. I'm obsessed with vintage ephemera, and I've been wanting to make some sort of artwork with these little bird cards that I got at the thrift store the other day. Most of the cards were made by Arm & Hammer and were released as an initiative to help people of America understand how important birds are to us. The series was called Useful Birds of America and ran from the late 1880s to the late 1970s. I think the cards I have are maybe 50s to 70s. I really have no idea, but it's very cool to have them. I think these cards are really beautiful and I wanted to make a piece of artwork with them. I found the cards while I was thrifting with my mom, so the ideas kind of started flowing in that direction, and I decided to make a piece dedicated to my mom with the cards. So here's the sketches. I'm putting 3 different artworks. One is going to be like all covered with those bird cards in the back, and mom coming in like whooshing them all away, and then at the end, nothing in the background, just the two of us. So I had texted my mom and asked her like what her favorite birds were to get a kind of view of what kind of birds we were going to be in this artwork, and she gave me this little list, and I was between the eastern bluebird and mourning doves because I feel like I love those birds. They're fantastic. So I just kind of did like little quick studies of each option to see which one I liked most. I just wasn't digging how the little dove beak goes down like I like it on doves, but I didn't kind of want it for this artwork, but love bluebirds. I'm gonna be using this big pad of Strathmore watercolor paper I got also at a thrift store at some point. I think it's got something I never finished in there. Cool. Jumping straight into the sketch of what I'm going to be calling the first page, we have the little bird girl holding a little mirror, and you can see me use one I have for reference. All around her are going to be the bird cards, as if they're representations of her thoughts of like, this is what I should look like when I get older, because they're like, you know, the hot birds in the magazine, theoretically. The expectation of adulthood, basically. Okay, here's the first sketch. I feel okay about it. I feel like maybe I made it a little too big, because when Mama Bird comes in, she's gonna be like, at least a little bit taller, but you know, I mean, baby birds at this age versus the adult bluebirds are pretty small. So we'll roll with it. I think for the next scene, she's gonna be like shifted over to about here. No, actually no, I think Mom's gonna be pulling her back towards this way because she's like whooshing the other stuff away, so we'll see how I do that. She is just going to tower over me while I work on this. Alright, for the second page here, I'm gonna have the mom coming in from the other side of the page, pulling the girl back and throwing her wing up, and the cards are gonna be scattering around the wing as if she's whooshing away all these thoughts, as I called it. Whooshing. Alright, here's a sketch for the second page. I think it turned out good. She's gonna be coming off the page. I struggled a little bit with the feet, kind of cut that out at the end, but I think it's pretty good. For the last page, it's just gonna be mom and daughter together. No more bird cards on the page because the mom has eradicated everything, and she's gonna be pushing the little mirror up to the girl's face to be like, no, look, you're beautiful. You don't have to be any of those things. Alright, here's what we got. We got first page, second. I feel okay about this page. I think this is like, it was the most dynamic and I had a hard time with it. And then there's this one. Cute. I'm probably just gonna ink these before I do all this stuff, because if this goes bad, I'll at least still have some pretty inks. So there's that. For this project, I decided to use the classic dip pen and ink, and you could tell I was very rusty when I started this because it's a lot of like, oh, am I gonna start it? And like going back and forth, hatching myself away before I'm actually feeling comfortable enough to put the pen down, because inking with a nib is stressful. You have to go really, really slow, and you have to rotate the page around just because of the way you have to drag your hand. I'm using a waterproof ink because I'm going to be using watercolor later. It's Dr. P.H. Martin brand, the classic Bombay black ink, my favorite. I actually did not record a lot of the inking process for any of these pages because it's a lot of just this, like really bad angles, curved pages. It's really hard to get good footage because you're constantly shifting the page around. If you're inking with like dip pen and ink, this is a little word of advice that I didn't follow myself, obviously. Know what side your hand drags to, and avoid smearing ink. So because I'm right-handed, I'm going to smear this way. So I was originally starting over here, which is not a good idea because my hand's gonna drag and the chance of me dragging my ink is gonna be worse. So instead of like inking like that, I'm gonna try and ink this way. That way I am not as likely to just go. It was a little bit challenging inking on this paper in particular because it's incredibly textured. And the nib doesn't really like texture because obviously you try to make a straight line and it gets really, really bumpy. Normally when you do comics, you're going to do it on something like Bristol board, which is a lot smoother. Honestly though, it's probably more of a me problem. I've never been able to have a very straight line to begin with, so I can't fully blame it on the textured paper. So, I have a couple instances of my line weight being a little off. Like, you could tell I had to, like, re-dip mid drawing this wing. It's like I'm gonna go in and fix later because once I'm done with this, like, original ink layer, I can go back in and add in some little line variation. I just don't like to do it in this stage because you're way more likely to smear when you erase because I'm impatient. I want to do it soon after, so I'm gonna like get this thin line weight layer done first, and then I can erase all the pencil lines and then go back in and add a little bit more variation later. I'm gonna use the inking of page 3 to elaborate a little bit more on what I was talking about in that last clip. Normally my inking process starts with just the tracing over my sketch, just keeping a pretty basic line, not doing anything crazy. But then after it dries, I'll go back in and add a little bit more line variation. So normally I make the line darker where I think shadow will fall naturally, adds just like a little bit of extra thickness. This is also the step in the process where if you were just doing black and white, you would go a little bit harder on this and add some spot blacks in or some hatching in. But because I'm using watercolor, I don't have to worry about any of that. You may have noticed my little cap off to the side that I'm dipping my pen in instead of dipping it straight into the bottle. This is actually a little tip I learned to save the longevity of your nib holder, because when you're dipping straight into the bottle, you're just staining it over and over and over again, which means you have to clean it more often, and then it just leads to damage over time. Not to mention all the ink that gets clogged in the nib and into the socket of the holder. It's just better to do it in a shallow pool, but I cannot deny I have dipped into the bottle many, many times and regretted it, so... On to the fun part of actually laying out all of the cards and seeing what looks good, if it'll look good, period, because collage has never been something I did well at all or ever, so it was a challenge finding something that actually looked good and honored the cards. I figure I can kind of like layer these, and then kind of in the spots where it's under, you have like some negative space like right here. Sliding one of them in like that would be kind of nice. While I was lining everything up, I was very stressed that I would ruin these cards. Obviously, it's a risk using anything that's vintage and it's completely out of print for a little project that might not work, but I decided if you're just gonna go for it, you should just go for it, and I hope that I'm honoring the cards in that way, which is really funny to say, like, honoring an item, but I've always felt that way. It's a piece of history, and I don't want to mess it up, you know? I hope I do them proud with this project. Alright, adding the cards underneath, I think, was key. I think it looks a lot better now. Yay! I think this is gonna work. And I have enough left over to do the other page and maybe have some left over to just like throw in my sketchbook or something for inspiration. Yay! We're doing it! We're doing collage! For the painting portion of this piece, I used the Dr. P.H. Martin's Hydrus watercolors, which are really pigmented watercolors. It's almost like painting with ink. I'll talk a little bit more about how I feel about the paints later, but I wanted to take a second to talk about the meaning behind this piece. The first page is showing this little girl who is looking at herself in the mirror and isn't seeing the things that she thinks she should see. I feel like when we're surrounded by social media, and when I was a kid, just like all the magazines, tabloids, news, I mean, everywhere you're looking at someone that you think you should be, or traits you think you should have. And then to have the mom come in and kind of throw all of those expectations to the side and makes the little girl focus on herself in the mirror and appreciate what she has. And honestly, none of that other stuff matters. And I was lucky enough that when I was growing up, I had a mom, and honestly both of my parents, who supported who I was and focused on all of my little weirdness and, you know, it didn't make me feel like I was strange. And I think that was very special, and I really wanted to honor that in this artwork because I'm so incredibly grateful for my mom because she taught me to love me for who I am, and it helped me cope a lot more when I grew up and I realized that I was gay. And there are a lot of social stigmas against that, as we know, even though it's 2024, you know, we've progressed, but they still exist. And I was very grateful that my mom set me up very well to cope with that because I knew there was love back home. And I know not everybody has that, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. And I think everyone deserves to have that. And everyone deserves to be able to look in the mirror and find things that they love and be like, this is me, you know, this is who I am, and I can live with that and love that. So shout out to my mom, love you. Shout out to my dad also, love you. But anyway, the painting. I was a little more relaxed applying the bird cards to this page because I think I had time to settle into the way it looks, and I had a lot of fun throwing them off the page, like really giving into that over-exaggerated movement of the wing, like flinging them everywhere. I was kind of struggling with keeping my paint even, as you can see really strongly with this wing. I am terrible at mixing the same color I had just made, so I struggled with that wing and the same color with the hair, as you can see on this page. Alright, so I'm on day 2 of working on this painting, and I was thinking about it last night, and I feel like I could compare the experience of using these paints as like mixing potions, just because they're so strong. They've had time to dry overnight, like the stuff in my pan, so it's not as, oops, just dropped one. It's not as intense, but it's pretty cool actually. I'm enjoying it. I just am out of the swing of using watercolor, so I gotta get back in there, but yeah, it's been pretty nice actually. It's a little bit out of my comfort zone these days because I usually color digitally now, and I'm trying to return to my roots of doing traditional because I think it's just much more fun. I've discovered recently that I really enjoy shading with hot pink. I think it's fun, it adds a nice vibrant pop of color, and I think pink goes with a lot of stuff, and I decided to use it for this project, and I think it looks really, really nice. So after applying my pinks to this last page, I am done, and here is the final look of the first page. Very cute. Look at the chubby little bird. And then here's the second page, looking very suave with that wing up. We love it. And then the third. Very cute. Now that the pages are done, I'm going to scan them in and bring them into Photoshop. This is what the scans looks like before cleaning up and then after. Just like really simple stuff like spot cleaning, getting rid of some of the ickies. But that's it. That's the project. And I think I'm going to do more stuff with ephemera, and yeah, happy Mother's Day. Love you, Mama. Alright, I'll see you later.